getting ready for the first night of the week, cooking dinner. So I posted that little video, go check that out. But we are doing a sweet potato shepherd's pie tonight. So I've got some sweet potatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and use my potato peeler, peel all of the potatoes, and then I'm gonna dice them up, throw them into a pot on the oven, or on the stove, sorry. And we're gonna boil those until they get nice and soft. Potatoes starting to boil over here, and then I've got 1 yellow onion and 1 green bell pepper with a little bit of avocado oil. Got that in the skillet. I'm gonna tender, and then I'm going to add my ground beef in, mix it all together, and we'll go to the next step. Y'all, this is such a simple meal. It doesn't take a lot, it just takes a few extra steps. I've got these pretty tender. I'm not gonna worry about cooking them completely because they're gonna go in the crock pot, and that's gonna keep it pretty warm and keep it cooking a little more. So I'm gonna make a little well in the center, and I'm gonna add my ground beef right inside. Hard to do with one hand, but I'm doing my best. And I'm just gonna break this meat up to make sure it cooks nice and even. And then I'm gonna mix it together with the onions and the bell pepper. I realized that I told you this was gonna go in the crock pot, so I wanted to explain that a little bit. So I would typically put this in, fix the meat, fix the sweet potatoes. You could also cook the sweet potatoes the day before and then place them in the refrigerator the next day, heat them up in the microwave and mix all this together. That'll make sense here in just a little bit. But because we go to the gym in the afternoons, I really wanted this to be ready when we got home from the gym, and I'm gonna pick Trent up from work here in about an hour. So I'm going ahead and making everything, and I'm putting it in the crock pot, not to cook, but just to keep it warm so that everything kind of works together. Once I get home from the gym, we can chat. Meat is all done, and I'm gonna take the heat down, completely turn it off, but I'm gonna leave it on the stove. Our potatoes are almost done, so I'm gonna let those go for just a few more minutes. But while we do that, I'm gonna take my tomatoes into the sink and I'm gonna drain them out just a little bit because I really don't want all this extra juice. You really don't need all that. So I'm gonna take those and drain that, and then we're gonna also add these into the meat, and then we're gonna drain the meat with the drain the meat with the tomatoes in that mixture too. Now we're gonna fold the tomatoes into the meat mixture, and ground beef, you see all that grease, we don't need all that. So I'm gonna take all these tomatoes and blend them in really, really well, and then I'm gonna drain my meat really well and make sure I get as much grease off as possible. That is an important step. So now that we're all drained, I'm gonna slowly, this is gonna be kind of hard to do because there's a lot of juice, but I'm gonna toss this right into my crock pot. If you're not doing this in the crock pot, then just toss it into a baking to make my own taco seasoning. But for sake of things that you may not wanna do, you may just wanna buy it at the store. That's what we're doing today. So I've got a low sodium taco seasoning, and I'm just gonna take a whole pack and chunk it right on in there. I think I crunched the package so I can't get it all out, but I'm just gonna toss it all in, and then I'm gonna mix it up really well together, and we're gonna make this stay in the bottom of it out and then mix it all together so it's not just like powder on top. Last full step. I'm gonna take the sweet potatoes that I drained. I'm actually just gonna add those back into the pot here. And I'm gonna add, let's see if I can do this with one hand. I'm gonna add about a cup, let me spread these out a little bit, about a cup of milk into this. Now, I like to use dairy-free milk, almond milk, cashew milk, coconut milk, anything like that, some sort of dairy-free milk, but you use what works best for you. So I'm gonna add about a cup of that in. I think that's about a cup. And then we're gonna head and add the cheese. Trying to do this with one hand is hard. Now I'm gonna add about a half a cup to a cup of this shredded Mexican cheese. You can use sharp cheddar if you want to. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that really makes a difference is that you, as soon as your potatoes are completely done and while they're still hot, so everything melts together really well. Sometimes I like to put this into a blender or a food processor too. I just feel like sometimes the cheese makes it a little harder to get out of there, so I'm opting just to mix it up and mash it up. Okay, y'all, I've got all of my sweet potatoes nice and they're still kind of chunky, but they're also very blended together and mixed with the ingredients we just chatted about. So I'm gonna take this, all of this, and I'm gonna dump it right on top of the meat mixture that's already in there. I went ahead and turned my crock pot on low so that it could just heat up a little bit. And then once I get this in here, I'm just gonna take it and do like a this motion, kind of like you're icing a cake. And make sure it's covering really well and very even on the top of the meat mixture. And then I'm just gonna let this stay on warm until we get back from the gym. It'll be nice and extra warm, and then I'll sprinkle a little extra cheese on top. We'll serve it up with a side salad, and that's dinner.